What if one broken shield ended Western civilization before it began? In 490 BCE, Athens stood against the Persian Empire and lost. No democracy, no Socrates, no Plato, no Aristotle. A single battlefield collapse rewrites 500 years of history. This is the world where the Agora fell silent forever. The year is 490 BCE. The Achaemenid Empire, under Darius the Great, stretches from the Indus to the Aegean. It is the known world's unchallenged superpower. On the plains of Marathon, 10,000 Athenian hoplites stand against a Persian expeditionary force of overwhelming scale. Historical consensus holds that a brilliant, desperate tactical gamble won the day. But history turns on millimeters. The line between genius and folly is often only visible in retrospect. Now, let us analyze the timeline. That almost was. We must first establish the strategic reality. The decision by the Athenian strategoi, the 10 generals, to march out and confront the Persians at Marathon was itself a profound risk. Historical sources, principally Herodotus, describe a sharp division. To remain behind the city walls was to invite a siege, starvation, and the inevitable betrayal from a pro-Persian faction within the city, the supporters of the deposed tyrant Hippias, who sailed with the Persian fleet. To fight on the plain was to risk annihilation in a single stroke. The plan settled upon by the polemarch Callimachus and the dominant general, Miltiades, was a product of this desperation. They knew the Persian doctrine, a powerful center comprised of their best infantry, designed to punch through the enemy line, followed by an envelopment from their superior cavalry. Miltiades' counter was radical. He ordered the Athenian center thinned to a fragile depth, perhaps only 3 or 4 ranks, while massively reinforcing the flanks. The Athenian line, stretched to match the Persian frontage, was a concave bow. Inviting the Persian strike, the intent was a double envelopment, a tactic centuries ahead of its time. It was a gamble that relied on 2 critical factors: the cohesion of the catastrophically thin center and the absence of the formidable Persian cavalry. In our timeline, the gamble succeeded. The center bent but did not break, and the flanks crushed the Persian wings before wheeling inward. But here, we locate our John Bar hinge, the academic term for this single point of divergence. As the battle commences, the sight is one of terrifying kinetic energy. The reinforced Athenian flanks charge at a run, crashing into their counterparts. But the Persian commander, Datis, adheres to his doctrine. He funnels his elite Saka and Persian infantry directly at the weakest point, the Athenian center. In this timeline, the center does not bend, it breaks. The sheer mass and velocity of the Achaemenid assault shatter the thin hoplite line. We must understand the nature of phalanx warfare. It is a system built entirely on interlocking shields and mutual confidence. When a fracture appears, its structural integrity does not degrade. It evaporates. The psychological shock is instantaneous. The line's collapse is catastrophic. What follows is not a battle, but a rout. The 2 powerful Athenian flanks, now engaged and victorious on their own fronts, suddenly find themselves isolated. The Persian center, having punched through, does not pursue the fleeing remnants. Instead, it wheels. Supported by the very cavalry Miltiades had gambled would be absent, the Athenian wings are now trapped. Attacked from the front and the rear, the Athenian army, the only significant military force defending the polis, is systematically annihilated on the plain. Miltiades is cut down. Callimachus falls. The entire military and political leadership of democratic Athens is erased in a single, bloody afternoon. These are the first-order effects. The 24 hours that follow seal the fate of Hellas. In our history, a runner, Phidippides, brought news of victory, and the exhausted Athenian army force-marched back to the city to find Datis's fleet probing the harbor at Phaleron. Seeing the hoplites lining the hills, the Persians sailed away. In this new timeline, there is no victorious army to march back. The road to Athens is open. Datis and Artaphernes do not need to risk a landing against a defended city. They can simply march. The fleet, now loaded with the victorious troops, rounds Cape Sunion. Panic grips the city. The news from Marathon is not of victory, but of absolute destruction. There is no defense. The demos that had voted for war is now defenseless, leaderless, and broken. When the Persian ships arrive at Phaleron, they are met not by hoplites, but by emissaries. The pro-Persian faction, led by the Alcmaeonids or others pragmatic about survival, opens the gates. The resistance is over. Within 72 hours of the battle, Persian troops, the Immortals, patrol the Acropolis. Hippias, the aged tyrant Athens had expelled, is restored to power, but he is not an independent ruler. He is a client king, a satrap. The reforms of Cleisthenes, the very foundation of nascent democracy, are abolished. The assembly is dissolved. Prominent democratic families are executed or exiled. This is the standard Achaemenid procedure for rebellious subjects. As witnessed in the Ionian Revolt, first, overwhelming military force. Second, the destruction of the resistant elite. Third, the installation of compliant local governance. Athens, the beacon of an alternative political system, has been extinguished. It is now merely the administrative capital of a new Persian province, Ionia, or Ionia across the sea. The fall of Athens is not a localized event. It is a seismic geopolitical shock. The news travels, carried by merchant ships and Persian heralds. The psychological impact on the scattered, fractious city-states of mainland Greece is profound. The central pillar of resistance, the only polis with the audacity and naval power to challenge Darius, has been broken and occupied in a single campaign. This is the second-order effect, a rapid, cascading political collapse. We must first consider the immediate neighbors. Thebes, the dominant power in Boeotia, had long-standing rivalries with Athens. Historical analysis suggests significant Medizing factions, pro-Persian elites already existed within the Theban oligarchy. With Athens subdued, any internal debate ceases. Thebes and the wider Boeotian League pragmatically offer allegiance to the satrap in Athens. They become a willing buffer state, securing Persia's northern land access to Attica. Further south, in the Peloponnese, we find the only power capable of mounting a credible defense, Sparta. In our timeline, Sparta's refusal of Persian demands was resolute. But in this new reality, their strategic calculus is brutal and constrained. The Spartan politeia is a marvel of military discipline, but it sits atop a demographic volcano. The massive, enslaved Helot population, the full Spartan army, the homoi equals, could never deploy indefinitely. To do so would be to invite a catastrophic revolt at home when Persian emissaries, now backed by a victorious army, already garrisoned on the mainland, arrive in Sparta. The debate in the Gerousia, the Council of Elders, is grim. They are presented with a fait accompli. To fight would mean marching the Peloponnesian League's army to the Isthmus of Corinth against a Persian force that has already annihilated the famed Athenian phalanx. This force is now supplemented by the captured Athenian fleet and the resources of Attica. Sparta's doctrine is defensive. A pragmatic decision is reached. They will not launch a suicidal war to liberate a rival city that has already fallen. They will offer a token submission, the proverbial earth and water, to preserve their own autonomy. They will effectively retreat behind their mountain borders, adopting a policy of armed isolationism, the Peloponnesian League, lacking Athenian naval power, becomes a fractured, irrelevant alliance. Sparta's great rival, Argos, which had always resented Spartan dominance, likely seizes the opportunity to ally openly with the Persian satrap, further checkmating Spartan power, with Athens neutralized, Sparta contained, and Thebes allied. The dominoes fall swiftly. Corinth, a maritime plutocracy, cannot defend its trade routes. Its access to the Saronic and Corinthian Gulfs is now entirely at the mercy of Persian-controlled fleets. It submits. The islands of the Cyclades, already intimidated by Datis's expedition, are now permanent, tributary subjects. The Aegean is no longer a Greek lake of competing merchants and pirates, it is a mare persicum, a placid highway for Persian logistics, commerce, and military power, connecting Ionia to the new satrapy of Hellas. This is the state of the world in 489 BCE. The subjugation is so complete that the great event of our timeline, the Second Persian invasion of 480 BCE, never happens. When we analyze the causality, this becomes the most profound divergence. Xerxes' massive invasion, the one that gave us the legends of Thermopylae and Salamis, was an expedition of vengeance and necessity. It was launched because the 490 BCE expedition had failed to punish Athens and had suffered a humiliating defeat at Marathon. In this new timeline, the expedition succeeded. Darius the Great has achieved all his objectives. The Ionian revolt supporters are crushed. The European frontier is secure. There is no strategic, political, or personal need for his son, Xerxes, to launch a new, costly, and monumentally large invasion a decade later. The Great War that defined classical Greece is erased from the timeline. This erasure is the key to the unraveling. The entire heroic narrative, Leonidas at the Hot Gates, Themistocles' wooden walls, the naval genius at Salamis, the final hoplite victory at Plataea is stillborn. These events, which forged a pan-Hellenic identity and unprecedented Athenian confidence, simply do not occur. Let us analyze the consequences of this non-event. The 40-year period that followed the Persian defeat in our timeline is known as the Pentacontiadia. It was the golden age of Athens. This age was funded by the Delian League, a naval alliance created by Athens to prosecute the war against Persia and liberate Ionia. This league swiftly became an Athenian empire. Its treasury, filled with tribute from over 150 city-states, paying for the grandest cultural explosion in human history. In this new timeline, there is no Athenian victory, and therefore no Delian League. There is no empire, there is no treasury. The Acropolis, which in our timeline was burned by Xerxes in 480 BCE and rebuilt by Pericles as a statement of democratic and imperial glory, remains untouched. It is not destroyed, but it is never rebuilt. The Parthenon, the Propylaea, the Erechtheion, these marvels of architecture, funded by an imperial treasury, are never conceived. Phidias, the sculptor, works on minor commissions for a tyrant, Ictinus and Callicrates. The architects never design their masterpiece. The unraveling accelerates, moving from the political and physical to the intellectual. The very soul of Western thought is now at risk. The Athenian demos the radical, chaotic, confident assembly of all male citizens is abolished, replaced by the restored, Persian-backed tyranny of the Pisistratiid dynasty. The agora, the public space, is no longer a forum for radical free speech and debate. It is a marketplace under military observation. Now, consider the figures who emerged from this environment. Aeschylus, the father of tragedy, fought at Marathon. His play, The Persians, 472 BCE, is a complex, empathetic exploration of the defeated Persian psyche, staged for a victorious Athenian audience. In this new timeline, Aeschylus is either killed in the rout at Marathon or, if he survives, lives in a censored state. He certainly does not write a play celebrating Athenian victory. The very concept of tragic drama, which interrogates fate, hubris, and the citizen's role, stagnates. Herodotus of Halicarnassus, an Ionian Greek living under Persian rule, wrote his histories to understand one central question: why did the tiny blank free states of Greece defeat the vast, autocratic Persian Empire? His entire work is an inquiry into the nature of eleutheria, freedom, versus dulia, servitude. In this timeline, the question is absurd. Servitude 1, his grand historical project, the first of its kind, has no premise. The title Father of History is never conferred. Finally, we must analyze the fate of philosophy. In our timeline, Socrates, born in 470 BCE, grew up in the most radically democratic and confident city in the world. His entire method, the elenchus, involved relentless public questioning of all authority, all assumptions, and all traditional virtues. He did this in the open agora. Protected by the rights of free speech, he was, as historiens note, a product of the Periclean age. In this new timeline, Socrates is born a subject of a Persian-backed tyranny. The intellectual climate is not one of confident inquiry, but of cautious compliance. The Socratic method, the public deconstruction of authority, is not eccentricity, it is treason. If this Socrates ever begins his mission, he is not brought to trial late in life by a confused democracy. He is arrested quietly by the tyrant's secret police and executed or exiled decades earlier. Without Socrates, the intellectual lineage that defines the West is broken. There is no devoted student. Plato, to record his dialogues, and found the academy, and without Plato's academy, there is no star pupil. Aristotle, to codify logic, ethics, and metaphysics. The entire Socratic, Platonic, Aristotelian framework, the operating system of Western rationalism, is never written. We must now analyze the New World. We advance our timeline to circa 400 BCE, the very years when, in our history, Plato was founding his academy and codifying the Socratic revolution. The satrapy of Hellas is a stable, if culturally stagnant, province of the Achaemenid Empire. Athens is its administrative center. It is prosperous in a subdued, bureaucratic fashion. The tyrant Hippias is long dead, succeeded by his sons, who rule as compliant client king. The city is a regional capital, respected for its ancient past, but it is no longer an innovator. A muted gold light hits the columns of the archaic Acropolis, which now serves as the fortress palace for the Pisistratiid dynasty. The agora is silent. This is the core of the new timeline. The intellectual engine of the West has been shut down before it could be fully engaged. The pre-Socratic Ionian tradition of natural philosophy, the inquiry into physis, or the material nature of the universe, likely continues. Persian governors, steeped in a culture that valued Babylonian astronomy for calendrical and agricultural purposes, might even patronize such useful science. But the Socratic turn, the radical shift of philosophy's focus from the cosmos to the human soul, never happens. The Socratic method, the relentless, public questioning of arete, virtu, nomos, lao, and dikaiosine, justice, is not practiced. It is a political impossibility. In this Athens, there is no parousia, the democratic right of free speech. There is only the data, the law of the great king. Intellectual inquiry is divorced from political and ethical life. Without Socrates, there is no Plato. Without Plato, there is no academy. Without the academy, there is no Aristotle. The entire philosophical framework that underpins 500 years of Western thought, the very concepts of idealism, formal logic, political science, and systematic ethics is erased. When we analyze the ripple effects, we see them extend far beyond Greece. The next great power rising in the West is the Roman Republic. In our timeline, Rome's cultural development was defined by its encounter with a free, intellectually vibrant, and chaotic constellation of Greek city-states. As the poet Horace famously wrote, "Captive Greece took its brutish conqueror captive. Rome absorbed Hellenic philosophy, rhetoric, art, and political theory, blending it with its own pragmatic imperium." But the Rome of this new timeline encounters something entirely different. As it expands, it does not meet fractious, independent Greek democracies. It meets the organized, stable, and monolithic frontier of the Persian Empire. Rome's model for a successful, large-scale state is not the brief, failed experiment of Athenian democracy. It is the enduring, multi-ethnic, bureaucratic success of the Achaemenids. Roman libertas may develop, but it is shaped in opposition to, and in imitation of, a Persian model. The Republic's intellectual life is not infused with the Socratic Platonic ideals of abstract justice or the philosopher king. It is more likely to absorb the Persian Hellenic blend of natural philosophy and the imperial Zoroastrian concepts of cosmic order, Asha, and the divine right of kings. The Roman legal tradition, therefore, might be built less on abstract principles of jus naturale, natural law, and more on the pragmatism of imperial edict. This fundamentally alters the intellectual DNA of any civilization that follows. The European Middle Ages will not have Aristotle's lost texts to rediscover the Renaissance. The rebirth of classical ideals has nothing to be reborn from. The scientific revolution, which was built directly upon the logical and metaphysical frameworks codified by Plato and Aristotle, is stillborn. The Enlightenment, with its intellectual roots deep in the Socratic method of questioning all received authority, is inconceivable. The world of this new timeline is one of enduring empires, of sacred monarchies and bureaucratic states. The radical, disruptive, and transformative Western ideas of the sovereign individual, of democratic accountability, and of secular, rational inquiry are not dominant. They are a historical footnote, a minor heresy, a path not taken. The silence of the Agora in 490 BCE becomes a permanent silence that echoes across all subsequent human history. History is not a river flowing inevitably to a single sea. It is a fragile braid of countless contingent moments, the charge of a phalanx, the breaking of a line, the silencing of a single dissenting voice in a public square. These are the threads. Pull one, and the entire pattern of civilization unravels, revealing a world we can barely recognize, yet one that was only a single heartbeat away from our own.